Hey guys, forsakeN here, and today I'm gonna bring you a TvT build order guide for Legacy of the Void. I read a lot of Reddit, especially the All Things Terran subreddit, so shout out to you guys. And I get the question there very often, or like we get the question there. It's not only just me on there, so apologies for this one. For like build orders, like up-to-date build orders in TvT especially, and the TvP, TvZ. So I have a TvP build order which is slightly outdated on my channel already. I may update this in the future, and I thought to bring you a TvT guide here for another build. In this game, this is from December 2015, but the meta pretty much is still the same in TvT. Bunny's going for Reaper, Hellion Aggression into Double Gas, and then a Raven in this game, and the Cloak Banshee in another game. I will link you the VOD down below so you can make notes for your build order. You can watch the other games, because I think Bunny goes for this exact build and Reality for his exact build in the same, in this, like in the, or in a similar way in at least another game, in game 3 here of this series. Bunny goes in this game for Marine, and then goes into a Reaper. Reality's build is the one we want to focus on. It's the Reaper Expand. It's pretty macro oriented. It's not as aggressive and reliant on damage in the early game as Bunny is. And we'll see that Reality will deflect this aggression pretty easily, pretty handily as well. So this is pretty much the meta right now in TvT, that you go for the Reaper into a Marine, into Factory, and then when you confirm that there is no 3-Rex Reaper aggression or anything like that, then you go and throw down the reactor. So the meta, most of the time, especially on 4-player maps, at the moment is that you get 2 Marines before you get your Reaper. So after you get your Reaper, excuse me, so you can deflect this aggression more easily. Again, this is a little bit outdated, but it's pretty much up to date. This is one of the only changes that occurred to this build. So Reality will go into Marine, Hellion, Medevac, and then go for a drop, and that's basically the opening here. It's pretty important to note that that Reality loses this Reaper, which is really troublesome for him. You see that he will evac to the high ground pretty much immediately, wait for 1 or 2 Hellions, and then retake the low ground. Also note that he has only 1 Marine right now, so even if you go for 2 Marines, you are still in a pretty bad spot until your Hellion arrives, you know? So don't stand on the high ground too long against, for example, 2 Reaper and Hellion aggression, which you see in the 3rd game of the series. So yeah, because then you can be pretty much dead against this. You can see how much aggression Reality has. Bunny's army is way more potent here in microing, can micro away pretty fast with the Reapers and the Hellions. So before you have Hellions, your Marines can be out microed really hard. So don't try to take the low ground unless you have this force, and most of the time you don't even need to take the low ground because it's morphing to an orbital anyways, so you won't lose any mining time or SCVs in this regard. So you can see Reality is going for a drop right here, which is pretty much the common follow-up. This can be comboed like in Half a Swarm, either with a Hellion Runby in the natural and the drop in the main, or you can go with the Hellion Elevator, so you drop your Marines on the edge and then you guard them with your Hellions, and after that you can elevate the Hellions up as well and try to do some damage. Note that against the Cloak Banshee opening, the Cloak Banshee player is required to bring his Banshee back to not die to your drop. So this is pretty good against Banshee openers in general, and behind that you can get Engineering Bay up, turrets, and then defend yourself. So what you see now is Reality is going into tanks. He's also getting turrets because he knew that Bunny had a late CC, so a Banshee is pretty much, a good possibility here. So there's that. Also note that he's going for Vikings. This is a really safe choice. I recommended doing it as well because Vikings are really good against any kind of drop player out of your opponent. It's very good and maybe even required and necessary against Banshee play, and can also shut down drops pretty hard. Also Liberators, anything like that. Like basically any early game shenanigans, Vikings keep you safe and they're also really good in the mid game. Once you want to spot for drops, you just position them outside your bases in the airspace where drops might come along, and then you most likely will see them in advance and can react much quicker. You can see the transition timing here for both players. This is really important for TvT, is at 5 minutes and 30 seconds with the stim and more Rexes. So that's really something that you cannot forget, that you should not forget, because this can come back and bite you. The other meta thing in TvT right now is once stim finishes, you go out and you try to do some damage, you lift up your tanks, rally them on your marines, and then you go out and see if you can do some damage even before combat shield is done. So do that as well. You can see here in the units tab on the top left that reality is way ahead on workers, and that's just because the opening was a pretty economic one, Reaper expand, whereas Bunny delayed his expand in favor of this aggression, which didn't do anything. So there you go. That's basically why I recommend defensive kind of openers. You know, this is still an offensive opener because you can do a drop, you can do maybe Cloak Banshee, follow-up, you can do Widowmine drop, you can do any sort of stuff as a follow-up here if you are reality, but you get the expansion first, and that's really something. If you cannot find any damage with the gas first opening against a quick expand opening, you are way far behind. You can see this here perfectly, that reality is basically 7 to 8 SCVs ahead for the whole game. He's cutting right now because he's staying on 2 bases. You can see Bunny is doing the same, but that's something that if you're not a really good player and you know what you're doing, you shouldn't really be doing, because you normally need those SCVs. So yeah, there is that. This is also pretty old meta-wise with the third CC timing. That's another thing I want to add here for this for this VOD, that you want to have the third CC down much quicker in your TvTs than both of these guys have them in this one. That's because it became pretty common and Terran adjusted to those flying medevacs with tanks in them, and they can defend pretty well against any kind of drop aggression and stuff like this. So there you go. That's something that you should keep in mind, that normally you go, no, I would say it depends on the game. Like if you scout that your opponent is really greedy, you can go into a third CC before any additional Rexes and your stim transition, but normally you want to have at least two more Rexes into the third CC to be in a pretty good position. And you can see here, like Bunny is taking damage, but it's not so bad, you know, he's pretty alright, but the supply tells a story, but that's mostly because of the early economic lead that Reality got due to his very economic opening. So yeah, now Reality just traded armies with Bunny, siege tank for siege tanks, marines for marines, and this favors Reality because he has a much better economy. He has a third CC also on the way, on location, because he has map control, and therefore like Reality basically won the game. You know, he's like 40 supply ahead right now, and that's just because he did a really safe build with an aggressive option. You know, he delayed the natural CC of Bunny, for example, he did some scouting, all this stuff, and Bunny did basically pretty bad build for the build that Reality does. Like if you want to be really extremely safe, sacrifice economy for that, then you can do what Bunny did in this game. I would highly recommend it. It's like one of the safest openings you can do, you know, like a Raven into a Cyclone. Super safe, almost nothing can kill you, but keep in mind, you can do this out of the Reality build order with the Reaper Expand as well. If you just go Reaper Expand into Cyclone into Raven, kind of uncommon build in opening, because the Raven would be pretty late for a gas first Banshee opening, which is why you get this most of the time. But yeah, it's still an option to go defensive with Reality's build. Also, it's pretty strong in reacting to different things you see. You know, you can go on the offensive really quickly with different kind of things. You know, you can do this Hellion elevator like Reality did, or like this drop with a Hellion elevator. You can do the 8 Marine drop like Reality did. You can do Widowmine drop. You have all kind of options, you know, like the normal options that open up when you go Reaper Expand. So they're all there for you. And now this is basically just snowballed from the early game, and Reality will just take out Bunny here because Bunny just doesn't have enough stuff. You can see this in the supply. You can see Bunny's cutting SCVs still, because he tries to go for a really, really huge army and try to kill reality before the third base economy kicks in, but reality is way too far ahead for that to happen, so this doesn't really work and Bunny will just die. So if we go back to the build, like just for a quick second, I won't really show it here. Again, the VOD is in the links, or the link to the VOD is below in the description. Just go ahead. And yeah, that's basically a huge positional mistake by Bunny and game is over. So the build here for reality is a normal Reaper expand into Hellions and Medevac for a drop, either with Marines, with Hellions, with both, an elevator, you know, whatever you want there. So yeah, there's Stasis and Artosis, the Archon, the casting Archon. So that's basically his game plan, you know. His game plan is, okay, I scout with the Reaper, I see what I can do, you know. I play defensive against any kind of really aggressive opening, like a Reaper, Reaper, Hellion, does first stuff against Cloak Banshee, anything like this. You can play really defensive, doesn't take any damage, and then basically goes ahead by just having this much quicker CC. Then he plays defensive with turrets, with 2 Vikings normally, to cover his bases against drops, against Banshees, stuff like this. And then he moves into a normal mid-game transition with the 5:30 stim timing, more Axis, E-base, and the like. Again, the meta right now favors a much quicker third base in TvT, but the 5 racks before CC, before third CC is kind of viable too. So there's still that. Basically, this depends on what you scout from your opponent. If you see your opponent is powering up a really strong army on 2 bases, cutting SCVs, stuff like this, then maybe you want to go 5 racks as well, just to have the kind of similar economy. You can then cut Marines for a little bit, just to get the third CC going, and then resume Marine production with your 5 racks. So you get an advantage that way. You could go double upgrade, stuff like this, just to get an edge in some regard. If you see your opponent's really greedy with a really quick third CC, you can do that as well, like go third CC before any additional racks or your stim transition. That's also a possibility. So you have all kind of options depending on what you scout with your medevac drop, with your Hellion aggression, stuff like this, and you can adjust to anything pretty well. Again, don't try to hold a low ground against these aggressive Reaper Hellion openings, because most of the time they can out-micro you and you will kind of just die, so don't do that. Against 3-Rex Reaper, please keep in mind, again, I just mentioned it casually, unless you confirm that it's not 3-Rex Reaper, don't stop Marine production, try to get to your Hellion ASAP and maybe pull some SCVs, like 4 to 5, around 2 minutes and 20 seconds, because that's the time when 3-Rex Reaper will jump into your main base, mostly, and try to kill you. So be prepared for that with some SCVs, and once you have 1 or 2 Hellions, you should be fine. And once you are fine, you can go for the reactor on the Rex. So delay that as long as you think you need to, but not too long, that maybe his transition into a reactor Rex could outproduce your Marine count, and then you are in a lot of trouble in the mid game. So it's kind of an experience thing, so you have to learn. And basically, if you play against Terrans that do this, you have to learn what works for you. And when you play safe, there's like no general guideline except skip your reactor for as long as you feel the need to do it. That's basically the build, I think. Again, Reaper expand into 1/1/1 opening into whatever you want. Widowmine drop, Hellions, even Cloak Banshee could be a possibility, even though it's pretty uncommon because it gets to your opponent's space pretty late. But if he's unprepared, maybe does some damage. So you have all the options. Scout what your opponent's doing, adjust your transition accordingly, and then win some TvTs. So if you like what you're seeing here, I'm streaming pretty regularly on Twitch, twitch.tv/forsakeNXE, so you can follow me there. Again, all the links in the description below. I also have Twitter, Facebook, all the stuff. So if you want to keep up to date with my guides and other content I do, which is mostly streaming for now, then you can head over there as well. Give me a like, give me a follow, stuff like this, and you will be updated every now and then from my content. I think for the next one I will do a TvZ guide, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, keep on rocking the ladder, and I'll see you on stream maybe, or in the comment section below. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment in the comment section below, hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you like, and I will most likely come back to you that way and answer your question. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a nice one, have a good one, rock some TvTs and get some wins. Bye bye.